Final question today is from Andy Schnick. He says, even though some wildlife die, oil is not pretty and can be harmful to people. Is the media brainwashing us to think of oil as some sort of extraterrestrial or synthetic substance when it is entirely natural? Here's the amazing thing about oil. If oil didn't exist, let's just say oil didn't exist. Let's just say that we had to burn trees for wood, or we had to cut peat, or coal. Even coal is a good example. We had to go and blast these holes in the earth and go in there with pickaxes and pull these rocks out, then shovel rocks into a furnace. If oil didn't exist, and you were to say to somebody, wouldn't it be cool if there was an energy source that had an energy density far beyond coal and was just packed with these super complex hydrocarbons where just the touch of a spark would release more energy than you know what to do with, where something that's basically the size of a small safe produces 350 horses in harness, in tandem, all the time, right? What would I tell you if there was a substance like this, and the substance was of such high density that you didn't need hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of gallons of it, that you could go 400 or 500 miles on, 20 gallons or less or something like that? What would you do? What would you do if it turns out it was actually not in solid form or in gaseous form, when it had to be compressed or captured or could leak, or rocks that you had to shovel into a giant bin? You didn't have to carry a coal compartment behind you like a locomotive. What if I told you it was in liquid form, was easily transportable through pipelines, and easily storable in fairly simple things? Then what would you do? And then if I asked you, now what if this miracle substance was so abundant that there doesn't ever seem to be an end of it? You'd think I was an idiot. You wouldn't be able to process it. It would sound like God gave you free energy. I don't know enough about abiotic oil. I know enough to be interested. I'm quite sure the fact that no one's talking about it means that it's probably just a chimera, that it doesn't really exist. But there is a theory that says that oil is not produced by the decay of vegetation and dinosaurs rotting under pressure, but that basically there are so many hydrocarbons observable in the universe, in the nebulae that form the solar system. There's so many hydrocarbons out there that it's just simply the pressure of a gravitational field and of a heavy planet creates oil, squeezes it out of the core basically, and there's no end to it. It's literally endless amounts of oil. You think about how small the surface of the earth is relative to the depth of the earth. There's just essentially no end to the oil. I've heard stories anecdotally. I'm not trying to sell you on this. I just don't know. But I've heard stories anecdotally where they'll pump an oil field dry and they go back 20 years later just to find out if there's more oil around. It turns out part of it's refilled. But even put that aside, let's say that's not the case. Oil is a miracle. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. I stand there for how long? I've got a big tank in my new car, because my new car burns a fair amount of gas. It's 17 miles to the gallon. It's like, are you kidding me? Sweet. By the way, I saw one of these photographic macros, which I used to refer to as a meme until I was corrected by the comment section here, and rightfully so. It was basically a picture of a Prius, and below that was a Lamborghini, but for my purposes, I'm going to put a silver Camaro down there. And it's a picture of a Prius, and below that was a sports car. Let's say it's a silver Camaro. And the Prius has a little slogan next to it, a little like a thought balloon, and it says, "I get 48 miles to the gallon, what do you get?" And the sports car says, "I get laid." Something to be said for 17 miles to the gallon or less. With all that said, though, even if oil is a limited resource to the degree that no new oil is being made, what we are finding is that ingenuity is the amount of oil available to human beings today is greater than it was 100 years ago. I think it's far greater. Because while we have in fact burned a fair amount of the oil that was in there, used to just stick a stick in the ground in Pennsylvania, and up from the ground comes a bubbling crude, right? That's gone, and let's say it's gone forever. But once you start to get to volume, the volume of the Earth, that's really what it comes down to. Anybody who's flown over the surface of the Earth knows that the Earth is unbelievably huge. I've done so much flying lately. This is a big, 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 big planet. And when you're at 30,000 feet, which is nothing, you just see, when you're 30,000 feet, you see a postage stamp size of the Earth. Even then, at 30, 40,000 feet in a typical commercial flight from LA to New York or whatever, you can't see individual cars on the road. They're too small to make out at cruising altitude. You might see a big truck, but you can't see a car, and you certainly can't see the fuel tank on a car. So the amount of fuel that these things use relative to the size of the Earth, of which you're seeing just a tiny, tiny little bit from 35,000 feet. And you don't see deep either. You're just looking at the surface. There's a lot of this stuff out there. I don't think we'll be on an oil economy forever. I think it'd be nice to transfer to something that's a little different. There are some problems with burning oil, but most of the problems we have with burning oil, we fixed. I mean, this is the thing that drives me crazy about progressives is it's like they're on like the Earth is just getting worse and worse and worse. Here in LA, there are 4 or 5 times as many cars on the road in terms of total numbers than there were back in the 1970s, but there is no more smog in LA. I know people are going to say, what do you mean there's no more smog? There's haze, and I live in a town, but I have not seen the kind of skies that I saw when I got here in 1988. I don't ever see that kind of pollution anymore. And I wasn't here early enough to see the real pollution, which was a brown line. I got here in 88, and by the time I got here in 88, the days of your eyes burning from the smog were mostly behind us, almost completely behind us. Nowadays, at least with California emission standards, the air that comes out of my Camaro is probably cleaner than the air that goes into it. I mean, we have, I don't know why we can't give ourselves credit for these miracles that we've done. We've taken this commodity, gasoline, that we just throw away. They used to throw it away. When they were trying to refine kerosene for lamps, for kerosene lamps. They just chuck gasoline away. It was a byproduct. What are we going to do with this useless stuff? I don't know. Just throw it away. Chuck it in the ocean. Civilization is energy. It's that simple. Civilization is energy. And I was having this conversation not long ago, I think, with a soldier. I'm sorry, it wasn't a soldier. It was somebody who spent some time overseas. It was a daughter of a soldier. Spent a fair amount of time in Guam. And Guam is very hot, and South Florida is very hot, and I've been in Thailand, and Thailand is very hot. The Philippines are very hot, and Vietnam is maybe the hottest, most uncomfortable, humid place in the world. And if you've ever lived in a place that was that hot, and South Florida is getting there, and parts of Texas are getting there, but the desert doesn't count because I've been 110 degrees in the desert, been far more comfortable at 110 degrees in the desert than I ever was at 85 degrees in Florida, someplace with humidity. But if you want to imagine that god-awful, sticky, humid hot, you imagine Vietnam on a day in August, let's say at noon, and that heat is pushing you into the ground. That's nature. And then when you walk up to a door, and you open that door, and you walk inside, and it's 68 degrees in there, and it's dark, and you hear that sound, and you smell that smell, that air conditioning's that's America. America is air conditioning. America is air conditioning. Civilization is energy. I was in Thailand a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now. Yeah, March of 12. And I was in a town called Pattaya, which is a resort in Thailand. It's about an hour and a half outside of Bangkok. And, boy, you want to talk about, real freedom. I would walk down, they had a place in Pattaya called Walking Street. It's an odd name, but it's actually kind of cool. It was a street that was right on the bay. It was kind of like Riverside Drive kind of thing. They were right along the side of the bay. And what they decided to do is they blocked it off on both ends permanently for about 2 or 3 miles. So you had to walk down it. And since there were no cars on the road, the cars became kind of a courtyard, the road rather, between establishments on either side of what used to be the road. And so for 3 or 4 miles or so in Pattaya is Walking Street, and it's nothing but bars and nothing but live sex shows and nothing but laundromats and nothing but all of this stuff, right? And I was in Walking Street one Saturday night. I think I saw 1,000 prostitutes in one night. 1,000. Half of them were probably men, ladyboys. Had the time of my life there with my friends from Australia and Royal Marine and friends from Australia and England. It was the Anglosphere live in the streets of Pattaya, and I ate a cricket, which I promised myself I never would do, but I did because I'm not going to let the team down. I'm not going to let America down. If everybody else is eating a cricket or fried grasshopper, then I'm not going to have America just wimp out and be the guys that didn't. No. Took one for the team. Didn't taste bad, actually. It wasn't the taste. It was that if you chew it, all those little bits of chitin get in your teeth, and you can drink 4 bottles of water. I'm telling you, 4. And swish it around. You will not get those little pieces of grasshopper out from between your teeth. But anyway, one of the attractions in Walking Street in Pattaya was something that I think was called the Ice Bar. And what it was it was just a simple semi-trailer, refrigerated semi-trailer, and they cut one end of it off, and they put one end of it was plexiglass. And in that refrigerated car, they had the temperature at sub-0 degrees, slightly below 0. And the whole trick of it, the reason it was a tourist attraction, taking up valuable real estate in Pattaya, was because they had a block of solid ice, and that was the bar, and the walls were solid ice, and the Thai woman behind the bar was wearing a fur parka, and they would serve like flavored shots of ice cold vodka. And so when you went into the ice bar, outside of the bar, you pay your admission. So you pay admission to go in, plus there's the drinks. It wasn't cheap in Thai money, but in American money, it's, 70 cents or something. So outside of the bar, there are on hooks a row of parkas, and you would put the parka on over the shorts and T-shirt that you're normally wearing, so you could go in there and be cold for a while. And we got in there, and as we started to reach for the parkas, this one guy, former Royal Marine and by far the trip MVP by far, he, instead of putting a parka on, he just peeled his shirt off and just went in there shirtless. So we all did. So we all went in there completely naked from the waist up with this transparent window, and it's 30 degrees in there, and you can see your breath. But I mean, you can, this is not like cold, and it's not cold for a long time. We're in there maybe 15, 20 minutes. So here are these crazy white people from Australia and United Kingdom, and one from Canada. It was the whole blogosphere, and this American guy. And we're pretty well lubricated before we go in there, and we're drinking these delicious little shots of like cherry vodka, knocking them back, and having ourselves a party. And you could see your breath, and there was some person dressed up as a polar bear in a polar bear suit in there. And we were just having the time of our lives, not thinking much about it. And we turned around and we looked out through this plexiglass window, and there were like 7,000 people staring at us. Just staring at us. And that made it even better, of course. But what we realized was there were 7,000 people out there who most of whom had never ever been colder than 75, 80 degrees, ever. And they couldn't believe the fact that somebody would be in an environment that cold and they'd be in there without shirts on, that they'd be having fun, that it'd be kind of a goof. And that's when I realized civilization is energy. There's an electrical system in Pattaya, and they're running the refrigerator, and they're making a profit off of the fuel they're burning, because I had the time of my life, and so did everybody else. But if you've ever lived overseas, and I see a couple people in the comment section, some people in Guam, Marianas, Philippines, a lot of our servicemen know this better than I do. But I'll just go on the record as a civilian and as a person who's talked to a lot of soldiers. When you walk into a well air-conditioned building in Guantanamo Bay is a great example. I've been there twice. So I've been to Gitmo. You walk into an air-conditioned building, and you close that door behind you, and it doesn't matter where you are. Inside is America. It's America. Because it's comfortable. And the weenies of the world go, well, how much energy are you burning in order to be comfortable? My answer is, how much have you got? Can I be more comfortable if I buy more energy? Because I am paying for it, If I buy more energy, can I have more fun than this? Because I don't believe that the energy is limited. I don't believe that the Earth is dying. I don't believe any of this stuff. I think the Earth used to be dying. I remember seeing the Earth dying when I was a kid in the 60s and 70s. The Ohio River caught fire. My senior year and graduated in 1977, and the Ohio River, I think it was in Cleveland because Kucinich was the boy mayor at 23 or something. The Ohio River caught fire. And you would sit in traffic, and the cars in front of you would, little blue puffs of smoke would come out of the exhaust. And when jets would take off from the airport, the departure side of an airport looked like somebody had taken a number 2 pencil and smudged like black smoke. Black smoke. And when I was a kid, they were dumping mercury into the Great Lakes. The Great Lakes were gigantic, sterile pools of industrial waste. And when I was a kid, when you went to McDonald's and you had a bag of food, when you were finished with the bag, you threw it out the window. And the freeways were lined with garbage. And it's not like that anymore, because for a while there, as I talk about in the regulations thing on the virtual presidency, which you can see all of right now by becoming a member at BillWhittle.com, many regulations are good. And the EPA in its early days did actual good. Now the EPA's job to make sure that nobody makes any money. That's their job, is to make sure nobody gets started in a business. That's what the EPA is here for. Because they've reached asymptotic effect, right? As they get more and more effective, there's less and less to do. And as there's less and less to do, they have to go more and more energy, more and more activism to get a slightly greater increase. So if you want to launch a rocket and you want to get it to 70% reliability, that's a certain amount of work. 80% reliability is a lot more work. Getting from 90 to 95% reliability, certainly getting from 90% to 99% is as much energy as it is to get, as much work as it is to get from 0 to 90. It's asymptotic. It slows down. And that's where we are today. So oil is a godsend. Oil is a wonder. And let's not even talk about plastics. The best reason not to burn any more oil is because we need oil for plastics. And George Carlin, who I disagreed with on so many things, I thought was a very sad, unhappy, miserable guy, basically said to these people who saying, I'm doing this for the earth, I'm doing this for the earth. It's like George Carlin said, what do you mean you're doing it for the earth? Maybe the whole reason humans are here is because the earth wants plastics. Who knows? You don't know. Nobody knows. Maybe the earth just wanted plastics, so here we are. So this is my attitude, right? It's not like I don't care about the environment. Of course I care about the environment. I happen to live in the environment. The environment's got cleaner and cleaner and cleaner since I was a kid. And it stopped getting clean probably around the 90s. Since then, it's gotten not much cleaner. But the regulations have gone up. Oil and cars are burning much cleaner than they used to. Plastics, which we used to just throw away, are now put into landfills, which are models of landscaping. These things, they have these plastic liners, and when they're finished, they look like parks. They're far, far, far better than they were before they put the garbage in the hole. And can't we leave something to future archaeologists? Is this such a real problem, honestly, that we cart the stuff out and dig a hole and put it in the ground, and then, 50,000 years from now or 500 million years from now, the ant archaeologists with their little spades and their 8 arms or 6 arms or whatever, maybe they're arachnid archaeologists with 8 arms, and they dig out and this thing here. Human beings existed, I can tell, because I've got a Nestle's Double Quick bottle. We think they used this as a form of worship. Who knows? Anyway, yeah, God bless oil. And if we didn't have it, we'd never be able to imagine it. So let's be smart about it. Let's get it out there. And the smarter we get and the more expensive oil becomes. The reason that so many of these oil technologies are working now is because none of this stuff made sense when oil was 60 cents a gallon. But when oil's $4 a gallon, it suddenly becomes economically feasible to go get oil where it's more difficult to get oil. But we find more and more and more, and compressed natural gas and fracking, which is just human. It's not human ingenuity. It's American ingenuity. It's American ingenuity and risk-taking. Turns out there's more natural gas available than we know what to do with. It's just, I don't know. It's so funny to me. We talk about this all the time. We advance technologically and we regress morally to the point where when it's all said and done, we will be intellectual and moral imbeciles with godlike technologies at our fingertips. And we're heading there real quick.